Release on life for a California woman who was convicted as a teenager for killing the man who forced her into prostitution.
In school, I excelled. I was on the honor roll, and the principal's honor roll, and I was like an overachiever. Gigi would start to take me or my little friends to roller skating or to the mall and stuff and everything. And he was like a father figure. He would talk to me and take me out and like give me all these lavish gifts. And then he would tell me that sex-wise, he said, you don't need to give it up for free. He had sex with me when I was 13.
Well, that's right. This case has stirred the debate over the way courts often treat survivors of abuse, especially when they're teens.
Are there times when killing should be legal outside of self-defense? The murder trial of Sara Kruzan will bring this debate to the household of every American across the country. It will make you angry with our criminal justice system and the lawyers that go along with it. How could a child that was forced into prostitution at the age of 13 be charged with murder after she killed the person that was responsible for her being sexually assaulted every single day? This is the story of Sara Kruzan, a former child sex slave, victim, killer, and now a current advocate, survivor, fighter, and inspiration to many. Sara Kruzan was born on January 8th, 1978. She was raised by her mother in Riverside, California. She was an honor student, took part in the track team, ran for student body president, and wrote a book on drugs and its effects and won a Young Authors Award, all before high school. Looking at Sara from the outside, you would think she was living a normal life and was going to be successful. Although Sara was doing well in school, behind the scenes at home, her life was everything but normal. She only met her father 3 times while growing up because he was always in prison. She started suffering from severe depression before she was 10, resulting in multiple hospitalizations. Her mother, Nicole, was not an advocate for her child. She was addicted to drugs and alcohol and would do anything to get her fix, even if that meant sleeping with random men. There were always new boyfriends coming in and out of their house. These new boyfriends would make sure that Nicole never ran out of drugs or alcohol. Being the addict that she was, she would physically and mentally abuse Sara. One incident, Sara recalls her mother grabbing the back of her head, getting a handful of hair, throwing her to the ground, and beating her head against the floor several times.
Did you, in fact, bang her head in the floor to the point that blood splattered?
No.
Because the CPS did an investigation of that and said that the allegations were substantiated.
No, that never happened, Dr. Phil.
Okay. You admitted to CPS that you pounded her head on the floor.
On a carpet, yes. I did grab her head and I 1, 2, 3 times.
In the community, most people knew that Nicole was abusing drugs and alcohol. That means the boyfriends that came over were there to take advantage of her. When Sara was 5, her mother Nicole brought home one of her boyfriends. When Nicole was passed out, her boyfriend snuck into Sara's room and sexually assaulted her. Later, when Sara brought this up to her mother just brushed it off like nothing happened. She told Sara she was being dramatic and was lying.
Sara was at my home. She was around 8 years old. I called you and I told you, I said, Nikki, Sara just told me that at age 5 she was molested by this person. And I remember you saying, well, yes, she told me that, but I wasn't really sure if she was telling me the truth.
Then, at the age of 10, Sara told her mother that one of her boyfriends sexually assaulted her again. And once again, Nicole didn't believe a single word that her daughter was telling her.
At 10, she said she had been molested again. At 11, she meets Gigi. That's when you're telling Gigi, don't mess with my daughter?
Mm-hmm.
But
no, I didn't know anything about Gigi when she was 11.
Okay, at 12, did you have a man with whom you had a relationship that you asked to mentor her?
Yeah, I thought he was a good friend of ours, okay?
And did he, in fact, molest her?
She liked him, Dr. Phil.
By this time, Sara didn't trust that her mother would do the right thing and continued to live in hell. By the age of 10 or 11, Nicole found a new boyfriend named George Gilbert Howard. He went by the name Gigi. Gigi was in his early 30s and took a keen interest in young Sara.
For an 11-year-old girl, what was the allure of this man in the red Mustang?
That I was gonna get 3 scoops of ice cream from Thrifty's.
For the first couple of months, Gigi acted like a father figure to Sara. He would take her places, buy her things, discipline her, and become the father figure that Sara really never had. Now that Gigi had gained her trust, he began to groom her for a life of prostitution. He would begin to buy Sara more lavish gifts and started talking to her about sex. He would tell her that she didn't have to give it up for free, and every time she had sex, she could make some money off of it. He would also tell her that a way to a man's heart is through sex, and for men to respect women, sex had to be given.
And then he would tell me that sex-wise, he said, you don't need to give it up for free. He would try to put in my head all these different things and how men really think and how men are. And so I would believe him.
All of this talk led to Gigi raping Sara when she was 13. The same year that Gigi raped Sara, he put her on the streets and sold her for prostitution. Sara recalls some of these memories.
He had sex with me when I was 13. Gigi's hours were from 6 in the evening to about 5:30 to 6 in the morning. The girls would bring their money and give it to him and stuff.
After each deed was done, the girls would have to come straight back to Gigi and give him the money that they were paid. Gigi, if he was feeling nice, would share some of the pay with the girls, just to keep them happy. This abuse and sex trafficking continued for the next 3 years. In November of 1993, Sara attempted to escape a life of child sex slavery by going to Ontario with a 15-year-old male friend. Sara's mother threatened to report her as kidnapped, so Sara, unfortunately not wanting to get her male friend in trouble, returned to her mother's neighborhood. Sara's boyfriend found a place for the two of them to temporarily stay. It was with his uncle, James Earl Hampton, also known as James Earl. He was a convicted felon, a drug dealer, and out on parole. As a side note, he has since been convicted of rape, attempted murder, and is serving out a life sentence in the state of California. James Earl would brag about the murders he committed. He would consistently wave guns and threaten to take Sara's life, or her friends. At this time, Sara didn't really have any money and was hoping to borrow some from Gigi so she could get her own apartment. As James Earl caught wind of this, he didn't want Sara talking to Gigi anymore, so he continued his threats to murder her. He also devised a plan for Sara that would ensure that James Earl was the only one that could own her. He quickly convinced Sara to meet with Gigi one last time and rob him for all the money that he made off her. Sara didn't necessarily have a choice in the matter, as James Earl threatened her life once more. If she didn't pull this off, she was dead. On March 9th, 1994, James Earl Hampton ordered Sara to call Gigi Howard to arrange that the two of them meet. He then garnered Sara with a pistol. James Earl brought Sara to a third party who would bring Sara to meet Gigi. Sara and Gigi proceeded to a movie theater where she began to receive several messages from James Earl Hampton, who instructed a quote 187. Sara knew this to be the California Penal Code section for murder. Gigi escorted Sara to the Dynasty Suites Hotel after their movie, where he had raped her on prior occasions. While Gigi paid for the room, Sara called James Earl and asked to speak with their friend. Her friend was also being threatened with his life. James Earl declined Sara her conversation and threatened her that he would kill both of them if she did not follow through with the murder and robbery of Gigi Howard. Past midnight in the hotel room, 36-year-old Gigi Howard put on a pornographic movie and began undressing and molesting 16-year-old Sara. Gigi then took out a large sex toy. Sara dreaded being raped by Gigi again, so when he turned around to plug in the sex toy, she shot him. She then took all of his money and keys as instructed. Yet, she accidentally left behind her purse. She delivered the car and money to James Earl. James then held a gun to Sara's head and instructed her of what to say if she were questioned. He then brought Sara to a different residence where he ordered her to be locked away in her room for days. Several days had passed, and James Earl finally brought Sara to her mother's house. Waiting at the house was an investigator who swiftly arrested Sara. Upon arriving at the crime scene, the investigators found Sara's purse with her identification in it, and it quickly led to the first suspect. While being questioned, Sara initially repeated the story that James Earl demanded. Yet, she soon confessed to the shooting. Sara was 16 years old and had no priors. James Earl Hampton was never brought to trial. Sara's defense counsel, David Gunn, advised Sara to take the case to trial. She was tried at Riverside County Superior Court. The judge was J. Thomas Hanks. The testimony lasted 2.5 days. Jurors were not aware that George Gilbert Howard had sexually assaulted, raped, and indoctrinated Sara into a child sex trade. This evidence was not allowed in the court. While no expert witnesses spoke in Sara's defense, Sara agreed to nearly every leading question the prosecutor asked. The probation officer assigned to Sara's case overlooked PC 190.5 that granted court discretion to sentence minors convicted of first-degree murder to 25 to life with the possibility of parole. The officer incorrectly stated that the state law required the court to sentence Sara to life without the possibility of parole. On May 10, 1995, at the age of 17, Sara was sentenced to life in prison plus 4 years without the possibility of parole. In the closing arguments of her trial, the prosecutor, now Judge Timothy Freer, cautioned jurors not to be swayed by the appearance of an attractive petite teenager who might not fit their image of a murderer. On May 11th of 1995, a Riverside Superior Court jury of 7 women and 5 men found her guilty of first-degree murder. They affirmed 2 special circumstances. One, that Gigi was murdered during a robbery, and that Sara had been lying in wait to kill him. This justified a sentencing of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. During her trial, her abuse was not admitted into evidence, and she was not allowed to speak of it. Sara spent the next 12 years in prison.
But the judge said that because of my crime, and he said it was a well thought out, that I deserved the life without. That means I'm gonna die here. I definitely know I deserve punishment. I mean, you don't just take somebody's life and think that it's okay. So yes, definitely deserve punishment.
In 2009, she was interviewed by Human Rights Watch, where she was finally able to speak out about her abuse, and as a result, received national attention from individuals and judicial reform groups who advocated for a new trial and a ban on sentences of life without parole for juveniles in California. Senator Leland Yee had been fighting for her release for 11 years when, on January 2nd, 2011, as a result of this and media attention, Sara was granted clemency by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. He commuted her sentence to 25 years with the possibility of parole. She remained incarcerated, however, there was now a light at the end of the tunnel. In January of 2013, her sentence was reduced to second-degree manslaughter and 19 years, effectively making this a time-served sentence. This also made her eligible for a parole hearing. She was found suitable for parole on June 12, 2013, and the decision was forwarded to Governor Jerry Brown. On October 25, 2013, Governor Brown took no action on the parole board decision, thereby effectively confirming it. 6 days later, on Halloween of 2013, she was paroled from Central California Women's Facility after serving 19 years behind bars. At the time of her parole, California State Senator Leland Yee stated, "Life without parole means absolutely no opportunity for release. It also means minors are often left without access to programs and rehabilitative services while in prison. This sentence was created for the worst criminals that have no possibility of reform. And it is not a humane way to handle children. While the crimes they committed caused undeniable suffering, these youth offenders are not the worst of the worst." Sara was pardoned by Governor Gavin Newsom in July of 2022. Sara is now a very popular public speaker and a reform advocate for child sex slavery. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe for more.